Mercury is the planet of the mind. It indicates our thinking, writing, and speaking style. When this planet is in the fire element, we find someone who seeks sensational, stimulating thoughts. They rely on intuition, and inspiration is central to them. What if Mercury is in the fire sign Sagittarius? We find a focus on faith, adventure, meaning, freedom, and humor. It's expansive, international, and prone to pontification. This placement is also sincere and direct. It can even be inappropriate in what it says. Don't forget, Sag is associated with the centaur, who runs around on four horse legs, launching arrows while looking up at the sky. They forget their surroundings and who they're with, and because of that, they end up making blunders. Most go through moments of being obnoxious, which is an everyday expression of their boldness. Add to this the spontaneity of fire, and you start to see where the humor related to this sign comes from. The best joke is something true that drops out of nowhere and flips our normal way of looking at a situation. Often it rides the edge between offensive and funny. All the fire signs are irreverent, but Sag is the most by far. The comedy writer and filmmaker Woody Allen combines the written expression of Mercury with the humor of Sagittarius. The reason he's an excellent example of this placement expressing itself is that a lot of his jokes surround the Sagittarian search for meaning in the universe and existential matters. He said protons have mass. I didn't even know they were Catholic. Or what if everything on earth is an illusion and nothing exists? In that case, I definitely overpaid for my carpet. In the movie Hannah and Her Sisters, his character says Nietzsche believed in the theory of eternal recurrence. He said that the life we're living, we're going to live over and over again in exactly the same way for eternity. Great. That means I'll have to sit through the ice-capades again. On a personal level, Woody Allen admitted he had no idea what he was doing, but he brought a lot of enthusiasm to it. This Mercury placement likes enthusiasm because it sweeps them away. It lights up the brain and makes fears and doubts appear small. They all seem to believe that they're somehow a passenger in their own life, that something larger like fate or destiny is pushing them along. I've never known one who didn't believe they were lucky. In fact, Woody said, luck is one of my talents. Sag thinks opportunities present themselves and people walk into windfalls. And you can have greatness in your life as soon as you get out of your way. There's always a philosophy about the way things work because Mercury in Sag asks themselves questions about the purpose of life, the meaning of existence. You can imagine it's hard for this placement to focus on daily details. Another Mercury in Sagittarius is MIT Professor of Linguistics, Dr. Noam Chomsky. Linguists are very knowledgeable people. Knowing language means you know a lot about the history in which it developed, the time in which it exists, and the philosophy and society in which it evolves. However, Chomsky stands out even among linguists as someone with an immense knowledge base. You see, Sag is associated with unrestrained appetites and greed. Mercury is linked to learning and knowledge. So when Mercury is in Sag, you can find a greed for knowledge. Chomsky is an extreme example here, with insatiable curiosity and a mind like a supercomputer. And his appetite for writing is huge, with 53 books to his name. Sag is excessive, and you see this in Chomsky's ability to talk. A former student of his said that his classes consisted of him standing there talking for 5 hours about whatever ideas were on his mind at the moment. And in true fire style, he could really draw a crowd. There were 10 listeners for every registered student in the room. And that's because whether or not you agree with some of the controversial, irreverent things he says, he's definitely stimulating. He said, "I didn't know that there was another option than to question everything." He says people should question him, and nobody should swallow the points he makes just because he has 42 doctorates and a nameplate on the door. Besides having a colossal intellect, I chose Chomsky as an example of this placement because a single thread weaves through nearly everything he says, and that is the need for freedom. The most Sagittarian thing of all is to love freedom and to want to preserve it. But he says we must believe in freedom of speech for those who say things we despise or we don't believe in it at all. And he talks constantly about the things that oppress us all, the whole human race all over the globe. It makes sense, he remarked, to seek out and identify structures of hierarchy and domination in every aspect of life and to challenge them. Unless a justification for them can be given, they're illegitimate and should be dismantled to increase the scope of human freedom. When Mercury is in any fire sign, you get an optimist, and this is very true of Sag. Chomsky said, if you assume there is no hope, you guarantee there will be no hope. If you assume that there's an instinct for freedom, that there are opportunities to change things, then there is a possibility that you can contribute to making a better world. Mercury in Sag believes it can always be better. No matter how much life pushes in on them, something stronger pushes back. So is there a downside to Mercury in the 9th sign? Well, it can be a convincing flim-flam man. It lies with sincerity. It can get stuck on a panoramic perspective when details are called for. It can be a gambler blind to risk, which is fine if the consequences of that risk only affect them. But this placement can be very insensitive to the security needs of other people. They roll the dice even if other people end up paying the debt. If the ego is weak, that wide mind begins to close. They can be judgmental and dogmatic and zealous. They know what's best for everyone. Now, this Mercury placement needs to think in terms of abundance, an abundance of freedom, of time, of ideas, of options. They find peace and happiness in seeing they have more than they need. If focused on what they lack, they're miserable because they need to feel the universe is providing for them. The gratitude journal was undoubtedly the brainchild of a Mercury in Sag because it brings into focus all the things that make them feel wealthy, and out of wealth, they can be benevolent. Thank you for watching Secrets from an Astrologer's Desk, Mercury in Sagittarius. I'm Joy. More videos to come.